Grown Black Folks Talk. Types of people to leave in 2022, Part 7. People who come loud and proud on ignorance. Now, since 2016, and really before that, I mean, you could pick any point in American history to be able to find this, given that we were all sold the lie that people from Africa were inferior to people of Europe, whereas history reveals that Africa's accomplishments are the founding of all civilization. And even the Europeans who read an English Bible will see that Africa is the first nation mentioned because that's either translated Ethiopia or Cush in Genesis chapter 2. And then by the time you get to Genesis 10, you find out that the children of Ham founded all of civilization. Loud and proud based on ignorance in the book that a goodly portion of people of European descent say they believe. So that's a nice basis for us as African Americans to start this conversation. Because while our ancestors were in their own place, of course, they were not ignorant of their own things. However, we, their children, come from certain from them, and they were denied the right to read, meaning that they were denied the right to understand how the country they were building actually operated. So you'll still find lots of cases where people are ignorant of things. And that is understandable because it's easy to do that. And in the information age, there are many things we're ignorant of because it is not possible to know everything there is to know. This was actually proven by a mathematician named Gödel. Gödel's incompleteness theorem says there is no possible way that we will ever be able to, our knowledge of anything will always be incomplete. It doesn't really matter what it is because it's part of the nature of being finite. So there's nothing wrong with being ignorant. But when you decide to get proud about your ignorance and get loud as if you saying some 2 plus 2 is 5 enough times will make it happen, this is where we begin to have problems. And there is an incredible move toward that. There is a name for this that overarching that the United States seems to be particularly afflicted with called anti-intellectualism, whereby people who bother to learn things and to think about things and to discuss things are resisted by people who, again, want to reign, want to be proud in not knowing and not thinking. This does not mean people, you have to be an intellectual to be smart. It means that it is resisting the idea that you come through life and to learning by actually thinking deeply about things. The intellect is being resisted. Therefore, these people are subject to being manipulated through their emotions and their baser instincts because there's no reason. And this is really a problem in European centered societies because of Descartes, who, instead of defining man as a creature made in the image and for the service of God, said, I think, therefore I am. Therefore, if you don't think, you aren't. And so here we are in this culture, living in a society that at its highest form values reason. And people are basically walking around talking about we don't really care what the truth is anymore. Postmodernism. That's a whole nother subject. I did a video about that. Run from postmodernists. But the idea here is that it's not just that people want to remain ignorant. They want to say it loud enough and proud enough to convince themselves and anybody who will listen to them that they are right, meaning that they will lead people off to destruction. Do you know how easy it is for you to check out any claim of fact that I make? You go on Google while you're listening, you have that tab up separately. If I say that If I say that the Milky Way is approximately 100,000 light years across, you can go look that up now and see if I'm off. And you can come back and say, okay, you're off 10,000 light years in one direction or another. They may have done a new estimate since I last looked at that. If I come up here and say that there are 13 to 15 million Black men, and at present, latest statistics say that 30 to 33% are felons, or that there are 17 to 18 million Black women and 25% of them are single mothers, you can go check all that out in a minute. Literally, it takes you a few seconds to check all those claims out. I got checked on the felony one because I had said when I had last looked, it was 25% of black men were felons. A black man checked me and then came back 5 seconds later and said, "You're wrong. It's actually 30 to 33%." But this is what I say. You can check out anything. So people who are coming loud and proud on ignorance are hoping that you're dumber than they are. We talk a lot about the manosphere and its use of statistics. We talk a lot about, well, manosphere use of, we talk a lot about Republicans and their use of statistics and their use of facts and alternative facts. Stop arguing with them. Leave them in 2022 because you're wasting your time. Proud ignorance, willful ignorance. Because again, if you can look up anything in 5 minutes, so can I. We can sit down and look at the facts that are available and have a discussion based on the facts that are available. Now we may not be able to convince each other because, like I said, Gödel's incompleteness theorem. Since everybody's knowledge is incomplete, we may not have enough facts at one place at one time to be able completely, but at least we're looking at what is actually available to us. People who tell you ridiculous lies, it's like that OK Cupid study from X number of years ago. It's a goodly number. It want to talk about how black women are the least desirable. They forget to mention that we can look up and find out that black men were considered the least desirable men in that same study. They forget that we can look up and see, okay, wait a minute, that's an OK Cupid study. That means that nobody that was involved in real statistics did anything to it. That's a study that involved one platform. But again, they done trumpeted this 1,000 times. They have set up and talked about women's body count based on a song by J. Cole. Whatever the number is, multiplied by 3. Well, what do you do with a woman like me? Well, you multiply my number by 3 and you get 0. Because 3 times 0 is. So you're using a song. Winter is coming. Do you know that's from Game of Thrones? So men have taken a fictional statement. And as I did the video last year and will recoup it this year, winter is always coming where winter comes. It's always coming. From March 21st to December 21st, winter is coming. And as surely as winter comes on December 21st, it will also leave on March 21st. Winter always comes, unless you go to somewhere in the world where it simply doesn't exist. Summer happens everywhere. Winter is finite. Move to anywhere around the equator and find out. Winter is optional. But you wouldn't expect people that had to find a analogy from a fiction involving white men to have something to say. And we're really going to have fun with this because the man who popularized this will meet the winter with his soul where he prepared for it to be and his bones leaching formaldehyde to the dust. Loud, proud ignorance, hoping that you are dumber than it is. I can give you plenty more examples. There are black female content creators who apparently are ignorant to the process by which new black men get to the world. And so propose that you should continue sleeping with black men and just abort the evidence. Right up after Roe versus Wade has been thrown off the books. So if you live in the wrong state, do you know what's about to happen to you doing that? And most of the states where black people live are throwing abortion off the books. But of course, she was hoping that you might not have paid attention to all that. Loud, proud, genocidal, and ignorant, and hoping that you were dumber. Leave those people in 2022. Fact check people. You hear something crazy? You hear something that you don't agree with? Don't just jump up here and start arguing with it. Go look it up and see if these things are so. I try to give you references to the things that I mentioned. Like in the previous video, why is Jamal Bryant wrong for even proposing weed church? That reason is in Romans 13 and Acts 5. I try to give you references so you can go read it. You can come and ask me about it. People who are genuine and people who are for the community and people who are for good welcome being checked because, again, Godel's incompleteness theorem means nobody you listen to has all the answers unless you are talking with God Himself. Nobody you listen to has all the answers. I can be wrong. Any well meaning person can. And if you bring it to our attention, then we get a chance to correct ourselves and correct our public. Now, thank you, all 786 members of my public, but I don't want to lead you wrong. So if you find better information or you find supplementary information that needs to come to the people, I appreciate that because the last thing I want to do, I'm loud, but because God resists the proud and gives grace to the humble, per the book of James, I'm not trying to have God resist me. I can understand you being loud. Some people have to be outspoken. I can understand you being ignorant because we're all ignorant to an extent. And there's a channel called Wendover Productions. Wendover, Wendover Productions. It talks about how airlines are really banks. And then there's some other stuff on that channel. And I finished listening to that and I thought everything I thought I knew about the universe is wrong. There is a YouTuber named Hobo Shoestring. I've mentioned him before. Everything I thought I knew about the culture of men was incomplete in America without knowing the difference between hobos, tramps, and bums. And why there is a railroad strike and how involved the supply chain is in terms of freight trains and such, I had no idea. I had no idea. It took someone that I normally would not have thought to listen to, but I've watched a lot of videos about train travel because when COVID is done, I have a fantasy about being able to do that freely. Every day you have the opportunity to get new information. But once you have decided to make your stand on ignorance, you have stopped yourself from learning and you stop anybody who listens to you from learning the truth as well. I don't want to be one of those people. I advise you to leave people like that in 2022. The first time you catch them in a lie, the first time you catch them in foolishness, leave them alone. Leave them in 2022 because we are in a time when we are in the information age, right? And so you getting the right information will allow you to at least get through. If you don't believe you can prosper, that's one thing, but will at least allow you to get through the times we're coming into. You taking in the wrong information and taking a stance based on ignorance is going to be this for you sooner or later. A subscriber brought to my attention the strange case of Derek and Tania Jackson on the occasion of their divorce. I looked up the church that they went to. The subscriber provided me a video. Let me tell you something. Ignorance will have you listening to people who will lead you straight to hell while allowing you to wreck your life at the same time. Mr. Ed Citronelli, I will not call him Reverend, is up here indulging in kink in the service. And if you think that that's biblical, then you are setting yourself up to die because people do what they want to do, but they don't realize STDs are real. That's just one example of many. If you don't get your financial life together by 2025 and you don't learn a whole lot of stuff about how the real economy works, if you stop listening to people who only know about earned income, there is a good chance in the next 10 years you will not have a job at all because there's not enough to do that. Black women making money and her video about, should black women marry black men making $40,000 a year made the point that artificial intelligence is going to take a lot of jobs that black men rely on to make around $40,000 a year without advanced skills. So if you only know about earned income and you're at that level and you do not know about business and investment income, you're toast. At $40,000 a year, you're actually toast now. If there's a real recession, you don't have it. But see, When you listen to people who are loud and proud in ignorance, you are missing opportunities to get information that you really need. And when you miss information in the information age that you really need, you are playing with your life and that of your children. I need you to think about your children. Yeah, we went a little bit far out. I need you to think about your children for a minute. I need you to think about the time that you listening to people that you know are full of bull is not only hurting you, but it's also hurting your next generations. Your children that only exist somewhere back in the mind of God right now. Your grandchildren that only exist. The people around you that only exist there. I'd take us on a little journey for this one because I want you to understand how deep and how terrible it is to be in the thrall of people who are loudly and proudly ignorant, and how absolutely dangerous it is. It's not fun. It could be fun because all of us have a certain taste for drama, but it's not cute and it will destroy you. An easy test. You can use it on me. If you have not learned anything in 5 videos that will help you understand the world you live in better, it may not be that that person is peddling ignorance, but it just may not be appropriate to you at the moment. There are a lot of channels I check out, and there's nothing wrong with those channels, but what they're talking about doesn't pertain to me at the moment. There are time periods that even people I respect, I don't listen to them at that particular moment because the subject doesn't interest me. If you're listening to channels where people, have stats that are between 5 and 30 years of age, or have stats that aren't stats, if you have channels where people suggest things to you that would get them put up to the war crimes division of The Hague, and they don't even know it, or will cause you to run aground of federal law. Shout out to Reverend Jamal Bryant again. And we church, for just one example, I can make others, but things that are going to mess up your life, you need to let that go. Leave that in 2023. Your future life and that of your descendants and that of everybody you care about depends on it. Do not give another minute, because you need that minute to listen to people that are actually going to train your brain to succeed and prosper in 2023. All right. Thank you for listening. And like I said, I make myself subject to the same test as everybody else. I appreciate the 786 of you that have decided it is worth your time to be here. I don't take that for granted. And I don't think I should be the only person that you listen to. That's why I so often recommend other people's channels. I'll put Wendover Productions in the description. It's just something that's out of the beaten path, but you probably would benefit from checking out. I'm not going to build a cult. I shouldn't be your only source of information, but I want you to learn how to assess me. I'll use myself as the hardest example and anyone else. Because again, you giving time and brain space to people who are loud and proud in ignorance, that's brain space you're going to need to survive the next 10 years. That's you, just like before, that's you committing suicide slowly. That's what that is. So please don't do that. Please do not give space to loud, proud, willful, damnable ignorance. All right. Thank you for listening. You have a good day now. Goodbye.